Hi everyone, my name is Amitha and today we're going to be going over the founding figures in psychology as our second lesson. So let's go back hundreds of years. This starts off with the ancient physicians, and what they said was that the brain was the source of mind. Essentially what they thought was that the brain equaled the mind. They thought the brain and mind were the same thing. Now, there comes the ancient Greek philosophers, and what they had were two ideas. It was either monism or dualism. Monism is when the mind and body is referred to collectively as one, so the believers of monism, they thought the mind and body was one thing collectively. And that was supported by Democritus and Aristotle, and we do use that in the present day as of now. And then we do have dualism as our other idea. And that's when they thought that the mind and body were two separate entities. They thought the mind was one thing and the body was another. Now, this doesn't mean that they aren't related. They just thought that they could not be referred to as one thing collectively. And this was supported by Pythagoras, Plato, and Socrates. One of the first main ideas that we'll be covering today will be functionalism. That was founded by William James. And what functionalism focused on was it focused on how the mind adapts to the environment rather than understanding the components of the mind itself. And this was a part of neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is basically the brain's ability to really adapt to the environment and external stimuli or surroundings. So that's what neuroplasticity is. And functionalism, what it was based on, what the belief was that if we conduct experiments on the brain, where we make the brain undergo change, we can learn more about the brain and how it works. And so that's the founding or the basis of this theory. Okay, so our other idea would be structuralism. That was founded by Wilhelm Wundt, and Edward Titchener, which was the pupil of Wilhelm Wundt, was basically the person who built on structuralism and actually established it later on. So structuralism, what is it? And so it's a way of studying the mind, and in this case we're going to break it down into basic parts. So this involves introspection, and that's the process of one explaining their own thoughts or their own thought process in the present moment. So everything that comes to their mind, they're going to try to convey it at the same time. And this was later deemed unreliable and ineffective. As you can probably think, it's really hard to presently talk about what you're thinking when you're already having that thinking process in your brain, and so this was kind of thought of as ineffective later on. However, when it was believed, what would happen is, for example, a patient would be describing their thoughts and feelings when they're looking at, let's say, a flower, and so they would be talking to their psychologist about their feelings. So they might talk about the color, they might talk about the shape, and so many other things that have are characteristics of that flower. And that's basically what structuralism is. It isn't really breaking apart the brain as in the pieces of the brain that make up the brain. It's about breaking up those thoughts that you would have in the brain. And that's basically what introspection is. However, again, this was deemed ineffective, and therefore we don't really rely on it nowadays. We have left that for the past. Okay, next we have psychoanalysis, which was founded by Sigmund Freud. Psychoanalysis is a type of talking therapy. So again, this would be on the basis of communication. And it allowed patients to practice introspection. So they would be talking about their mind's processes and how they really think through things in the present moment. However, again, since introspection was deemed ineffective in the past, it's not commonly used today. I wouldn't say that it's completely ruled out as a way of therapy. Some therapists do still use it. However, it's really not likely for them to use it. The goal of psychoanalysis was to bring back unconscious thoughts back into the conscious brain so that the patient can work through their trauma. So you might think, well, why would we want to resurface their trauma? Well, sometimes patients really need to know what's really disturbing them in the back of their brain, which they won't really be able to know if those are unconscious thoughts that they can't really identify. And so by using psychoanalysis to identify that trauma, they're really able to understand how to deal with their life and just to understand just what they should do in the future. So it kind of just helps with their self-identity and understanding their whole persona more. So, as an example of psychoanalysis, the patient would speak of the ideas that come to their mind in the present day, in the present time, and then the psychoanalysis, they would simply just listen. They would interrupt very minimally, but the only time they would actually interrupt would be with keywords to drive a discussion to more toward that trauma so that they can actually achieve their intended purpose. And so that's what psychoanalysis is. And empiricism, that dates back to when you were born, and this was founded by Francis Bacon. And you must have heard of John Locke, who believed in natural rights. John Locke also believed in empiricism. And so empiricism is basically the idea of when you're born, you have like a blank slate, you have a blank paper. And so through learning experiences and through observations in those experiences, that blank slate, or in other words, that's really referring to your mind, it gets filled up with all of this information from different experiences that you've pulled in. And so John B. Watson, he actually tested empiricism through rats, and that will be discussed in another video, but this has been tested before, so it is something you can rely on, and so it is an established theory. And that's it for today. Again, if you are a high schooler or a college student or anyone above a high schooler, you can join NeuroVista's organization, and that's really what's kind of in the back end of all these videos. We have these positions open: a researcher, editor, event coordinator, social media manager, and YouTube content creator. The link will be in the description below, so if you do want to apply, please do. And if you'd like to have any suggestions to what you want to see next, please do comment down below so that we can take that into consideration. Other than that, I'll see you next time, and thank you for watching.